Magento is a very popular e-commerce system, but sometimes it can be overwhelming and you may find it difficult. My name is Peter Britka and I am a professional Magento developer with 9 years of experience. Work with me and I'll do my best to explain you Magento 2 the easy way. I do personal coaching in Magento 2 and I also create online tutorials. If this is something that interests you, please visit my website at www.peterbritka.com and sign up for the option that works the best for you. This is the second video in the series where we are adding a new total in the system. In the last video, we registered the total in the system and created a model which is responsible for the calculations. If you haven't watched the first video, I suggest that you watch it right now. So the total is in the system already, but we need to display it in front end. For example, let's look at the front end cart page, refresh the page. The total is still not displayed here, even though we defined 0.5. So how do we do it? This cart summary is displayed using KnockoutJs component and its KnockoutJs template, and these components are registered into the system using the layout XML files. So we need to change the layout XML file for each page where we want to display the total. First, let's take a look at the layout XML file for the cart page, which is in module checkout, view, front end layout, checkout cart index, search for totals. This block right here is responsible for displaying the totals. It's inside cart totals.html, so go to view, front end, templates, cart totals.html, and this piece of JavaScript holds a JSON that we get by calling block getJS layout, and it contains all the components of the totals. You can see the JSON if you look at the source code of this page and search for cart totals. And this JSON contains the definitions of all the components that create the totals. So our job is to add a new total, like subtotal, shipping, and grand total, as a child of this block totals item. So first, let's create the view directory. Then front end, layout, checkout cart index, define the root element, body element, and here we need to reference the checkout cart totals block. So we write reference block, name checkout cart totals, and we need to change the argument of this block called JS layout. So define arguments node, then argument name JS layout. Actually, let's take a look at this class, Magento checkout block cart totals. Here the getJS layout method iterates over all the layout processors and returns the JSON from this layout. And this layout property is added inside the constructor, but we have to go to parent classes. So let's go to abstract cart, even further to template and abstract block. And here in the constructor, there is this line of code that checks if the JS layout is present inside the data argument of the constructor, and if so, it assigns it to the JS layout property and unsets this data JS layout. So this is where it comes from, and we define the JS layout inside the layout XML file. So we are here now. Let's copy these two lines, components and block totals, items. You see in this layout XML file, we have to set up the same hierarchy as we have in the checkout cart index. We are inside the block totals. We have to copy this children item. And inside this item, we can define our own component. So it will be item name, grand total rounding. It will be of a type of array. That's how we define components. The first node will be item named component of type string. This string will hold the path to the JS file that will hold the code for the component. Mine will be inside pivritka, grand total rounding, and then the relative path from the view front-end web directory. I will put it inside the JS, view, checkout, summary, rounding. And the reason is because, again, I want to mirror the path that is the usual path inside the core modules. Let's also define the sort order of type string. This time the sort order is the position of this total inside the cart sidebar. If you look at this node right here, you can find the positions of the totals inside admin. So let's take a look at it. It's inside configuration, sales, checkout, totals, sort order. These are the totals which we can define the positions for. And since we want to display our rounding total just before the grand total, I will set the sort order of 90. Then there's the configuration part of the component of type array. One of them is title of type string. We will make it possible to translate by setting translate to true. And we'll name it rounding. And the last item that we will add is the template of type string. And it will be again a path inside pivritka grand total rounding. And here will be a relative path inside view front-end web template directory, which will be checkout, summary, rounding. So we have the content of the checkout cart index.xml file ready. You see it's not very complicated, but you have to be careful when you define the hierarchy of these items, because when you do some typo or you, for example, forget to define the children item, you will be surprised that your total is not showing in the front end. Now we define the component and its template, so it's time to create these files and write the content for these files. Let's take a look at some core files. So go to front end, view front end, web template, summary, subtotal, And this is the HTML which is needed to render one line inside the cart sidebar. So let's copy this and create a new file inside our grand total rounding module under frontend, web, template, checkout, summary, and the HTML file will be called rounding. That's this part here. Replace this content and do some changes. For example, we don't need this for each loop because all we need is to display one row of the table. Actually, here I can add a new CSS class, grand total rounding, so it will be easier for the CSS coder to style only this line of code. Then you see we have a table heading with databint attribute that will insert the title inside this node. The title comes from here, so rounding, possibly translated, will be inserted inside this node. And then we have the result of the getValue method that comes from the JavaScript component file, and it will be inserted here inside the span. The title will be also inserted as the label of the span. This HTML template is very easy and there is nothing more that we should explain here. Let's create the Knockout JavaScript component. So inside the web directory, create a new directory JS, view, checkout, summary, and the JavaScript file will be called rounding. Also, let's take a look at the core file. Inside module checkout, view, front and web JS, view, summary, and subtotal, for example. We can copy the content of this file and insert it inside the rounding.js. I'm not going to explain how these KnockoutJs components are created because it's out of scope of this video tutorial, but basically here in the define section we list all the dependencies which should be available inside our component. I will add one more because I will need it in a while. It will be Magento checkout JS model totals. Then this component will be available as totals inside the function. I can remove the defaults property which only lists the path to the template because we defined the template inside the XML file. And these methods are important. getPureValue, it returns the actual amount of the total, while getValue returns the formatted price. So it internally calls the getPureValue function and formats it with the currency symbol and the decimal part of the price. I will also add one more function that is displayed. And this function will determine if the total should be displayed in the cart total sidebar. It will return a boolean and call this getPureValue and check if it is different than 0. Because if the total is 0, we don't want it to be displayed in the cart sidebar. So we can go back to rounding.html and here on top add a condition, a KnockoutJs condition that we write like this: ko if is displayed and close it here, an exclamation mark, hyphen hyphen, /ko, hyphen hyphen, and more than. And now this code will be rendered only if this condition is true, so if the value of the total is different from 0. Now I'm going to change the content of this getPureValue method. So first we'll define a variable called value and assign it to 0. Also I need a new property called totals, which will be different than this totals argument, and assign it quote get totals. These totals will be an observable with all the totals calculated for the quote. Now we can continue with the definition of this method. So write the condition if these totals. It's an observable variable, so we have to call it with the parentheses. And totals get segment grant total rounding. This get segment returns an array with the value of a total that we define as the argument. If this is true, then we set the value to totals get segment grant total rounding and its value property. And here we return the value. That's it for our component. I think we are done for the cart page. It was pretty much work, right? Now it's time to see it in action. So first I suggest that we clear the cache with bin Magento clear cache. I think it's also a good idea to remove the content of pub static directory. I like doing it from the visual editor because if you accidentally delete this htaccess, your CSS won't be properly generated. Now refresh the page. Okay, we have an error. Let's fix it. And here we are missing a type, which should be XSI type array. Again, we have to clear the cache. Layout is enough. Refresh the browser again. And we have a success. Our rounding total is here. It's a fixed value, so this order total doesn't count with this rounding, but we will make this happen in some next video. I want to display this rounding on one more place, and that will be checkout. It is displayed in the second step, and now you will see it's not there yet. You see it's missing, but this is very easy because we already have the KnockoutJs component and its template prepared, and all we need to do is add a new total inside the layout XML file responsible for the checkout. So first, let's go to the checkout module and find the layout XML file, which is checkout index. Again, search for totals. And you see we have it here inside the summary, which is inside the sidebar. And again, we have to copy all this hierarchy. So it will take some time, but again, we can do it. So let's create an XML file inside our module in view front-end layout. It will be named checkout index. Again, our root node, body. Then we have to reference this checkout root block because we have to change the JS layout argument for this block. So reference block name checkout root arguments. Let's copy this just to make it faster. Then we are interested in this component section, which will be these two lines, item components and item checkout. Here we'll copy the children node. These are all the children, like authentication, progress bar, estimation. Then we have steps, which are on the left side, shipping step and billing step. Then we have the sidebar. Then children and summary. Inside the summary, we have children and totals. Inside the totals, we have again children node. And here the children of this node are the actual totals. So again, we do the same as we did here in checkout cart index. We can copy all this content, insert it as the child node of this children item. And since it's the same, we just save the file and we are done. Clear the layout cache, refresh the browser, and it is here. So that was it. You see that adding a new total in the system is not difficult, but it's a little time consuming and it's a very complex process. So a little recap what we did. We created a sales.xml file where we defined a new total for the quote section. Another sections are order, invoice, and credit memo, which are out of scope of this video. But you have to keep this in mind that if you want to create a new module that you want to distribute, you shouldn't forget about these kind of totals, and also you need to find a way how to save this total to database. I will talk about this in some next video. Then we created a new model that is responsible for the calculations with the method collect, fetch, and getLabel. And to display these amounts in the front end, we did some changes in checkout cart index.xml and checkout index.xml. We created a JavaScript KnockoutJs component with these methods and also its template. And we are all done. This is how to display a new total in the front end. I hope you enjoyed the video. Later we will continue with saving the total in the database. And don't forget, Magento can be sometimes complicated, but in my tutorials I'll do my best to explain you everything that is important so that you understand. Also, don't forget that I'm available for personal consultation, so if you need some Magento 2 coach, drop me an email or visit my site and I will be happy to look at some Magento issue with you and help you with your Magento 2 development. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you are notified whenever I release a new Magento 2 tutorial. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.